Welcome to our Workplace Health Podcast. I'm Garlana Matthews, President and Editor of Workplace Health Magazine, your trusted source for comprehensive information on workplace health and wellness. Each month, I will be sharing interviews with leading industry experts to empower employers with the knowledge and resources needed to create and sustain a culture of wellness. Whether you're a business owner, HR manager, or employee, Workplace Health is your go-to resource for staying up to date with the latest trends and best practices in workplace wellness. If you're ready to address the diverse needs and challenges faced by businesses today, you're in the right place. Let's get started. We are excited to have Brian Allen as our guest speaker today. Brian is the co-founder of Optimized Outcome Solutions, and he's VP of Governmental Affairs at Mitchell's Pharmacy Solutions. He is a national expert in workers' compensation policy. A former Utah legislator, he's passionate about improving injured workers' recovery through education, advocacy, and industry leadership. Thank you, Brian, for joining our podcast today. We are looking forward to hearing more about your recovery program.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this program and what we can expect?
Sure. Let me kind of give you the genesis. I've been around workers' comp insurance for close to 40 years, either as an insurance agent selling workers' comp or the last 23 years, lobbying regulators and legislators around the country on workers' comp policy. And in my journeys, I've heard so many stories about injured workers who get hurt, who should get better but don't. And there was a question, well, are they malingerers? What's going on? Why aren't they getting better when they should be? And I was curious about that, and I'm the kind of person that likes to solve problems, and I felt like this was a big problem, so I started digging into it. And what I come to realize is that there is no training for injured workers on how to get well. We have safety training on how to keep yourself from getting hurt, but there wasn't any kind of educational program or information really structured around teaching injured workers what they need to do after they get hurt to get themselves well. And in the middle of doing all of that, a friend of mine, Harvey Warren, who I've done some projects with throughout the years, he was in a serious car accident related to his job. He was going to a meeting, and he broke his back in the accident and had to have spine surgery. Well, he was looking for information to help him learn what he needed to do and couldn't find any. So he ended up interviewing doctors, physical therapists, patients, and other individuals involved in the healing process to learn what they could teach him, and then wrote a book about it called The Optimized Patient. So he and I were at dinner, and he was telling me about this book, and I'm going, that sounds like the solution to this problem that I've been trying to solve. And so I started pulling together the pieces, and all of the pieces have been researched, independently, and they all prove that they can improve the healing process. But no one had ever pulled them all together into one program. And so as we were doing that, I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. And so I became the first optimized patient, I guess, outside of Harvey in his book. And I used the program that we were developing, just testing the different pieces. And what we focus on are mindset, nutrition, physical activity, and rest. And one of the things that I learned in my studies is that if you walk and do a lot of exercise before a surgery, it actually helps the outcome. So before my cancer surgery, I started, first of all, I worked on the nutritional aspect. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we did this walking regimen, and I was walking 3 to 5 miles every day before my surgery, and I was eating really well. And over the period of the 3 months that I was preparing for my surgery, I lost almost 40 pounds. So I've actually been able to sustain that weight loss, which is good news. And so when I went into my surgery, I was feeling really good. I had my surgery on a Friday morning, was in surgery for a few hours, came out of surgery. They gave me one pain pill. I didn't want it. They said I had to take it, so I did. And then the next morning I was discharged, and I was discharged with a cadre of prescriptions, and one of those being opioids. And I felt great. I never did use the opioids. The only thing I used for pain was ibuprofen, and I really didn't have that much. I will tell you honestly, Saturday morning when I got home, after I kind of refreshed myself, I had a catheter in, so I had a cath bag. I put the catheter bag in a Target sack, and I went for a mile walk up and down my lane. That was the day after surgery. By the end of that week, I was up to almost 3 miles again. So I was feeling really good, and I think it had a lot to do with that preparation. So, but all these things sort of work together. And one of the things so we focus a lot on mindset, getting your head in the right place. So when we interview patients and talk to patients, and Noah Galloway, when he speaks at National Comp, we'll talk about this. When you're in a position of recovery, you've been hurt and you're seriously, damaged, you start wondering if you're ever going to get your life back. And, I remember after my cancer surgery, I was doing pretty good, but I remember one night thinking, I've lived this eating regimen. I've been doing all this stuff. I've really, I gave up ice cream and milkshakes and all the stuff I really love. If this stuff kills me, I'm going to be really mad I quit all that stuff, So you sort of start getting into this, what am I really ever going to get better? And some people get to a point where they get so depressed they want to take their own life. And so what we try to do up front is get them in a very positive mindset so that they are thinking about winning instead of losing. And so that they're thinking about, I can do this, I can get well. And we have stories in our educational program for people who have been hurt and have recovered so that they understand that, yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so that's really important. Another area that we focus on that we think is really critical is the nutrition. So we had, Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food. And the reality of it is that there's a lot of truth in that statement. That was he talked about that, hundreds of years ago. So we had an RDN, a PhD RDN researcher by the name of Kay Bruning, who did some work for us on helping us understand what foods help your body heal. And so she'd been doing a lot of research on that. There's a thing called Enhanced Recovery After Surgery that has a nutritional component. And so we started, gleaning information from her about what kinds of food really help your body heal. And she was magnificent. She gave us all these ingredients, and these are all the things that help your body heal. But what they really were just a list of ingredients, which was great, but not super helpful for just the average Joe like me that doesn't really know how to cook. So we then went to a French chef that Harvey knew in LA, a guy named Guillaume Sabadine, and he took all those ingredients and created a 4-week meal plan for us that really uses all those ingredients to help your body heal. And most of the meals are fairly easy to prepare. They can certainly help and they certainly give you the right nutritional value. In talking with doctors, and there was one particular doctor we talked to in New Jersey, he said that there are so many people that are malnourished when they come in for surgery. He says that oftentimes I'll cut into somebody and they literally look like they're a smoker. They're so malnourished. And he says it's not that they're starving or that they haven't had, they're not. It's not like they're not like kids are like you see on TV, in the late night ads where you need to send money to. They're not starving children. They're not starving people, but they're malnourished because they're not eating good food. And what we try to help people understand is, if you're hurt, sitting around watching daytime TV and eating Cheetos is not going to help you get better. We try to get them out of that kind of a mindset and really eating the right kind of food. So what happens is if we can get their body more nourished and ready for surgery, it really helps them recover. The other thing that we've learned through Kay's work is that anesthesia really impacts your microbiome. And I didn't know anything about any of this stuff when I went in for my cancer surgery. I was learning it all as I was going along. But what Kay tells us is that the anesthesia wipes out your gut microbiome, and it actually impacts it for up to a year after surgery. I don't think most people know how long that impact is. So what we try to do is help them supercharge their microbiome before they go into surgery or as they're recovering from an injury. So as they're getting those nutrients, their body can absorb them. If your microbiome's wacky, you're not going to absorb the nutrients that you need to help your body heal. So you got to work on the microbiome and then eat the right kind of food to get those nutrients in your body. And so and we try to make it fun. We try to make it entertaining. We don't want people to, and we tell people, like, listen, you don't have to do this for the rest of your life, but at least do it while you're healing. Now, if you want to do it for the rest of your life, it'll probably help you, but, do it while you're healing. So that's really, really important. And then the other thing is just, working on, their positive mental attitude. And one of the really nice pieces we have is a gentleman named Blair Singer, who wrote a book called Little Voice Mastery. And he talks about that voice between your ears that's inside your head that tells you can't do things. You can't, it's like I can hear my mother's voice all the time in my head, bless her heart. And so, it's like really helping people understand that you have to take charge of your recovery. And so we work on those things. And then the other pieces that we work on are physical activity. And it's so important. One of the doctors that we talked to, a gentleman by the name of Vermont Esplin, happens to be my brother-in-law. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He always uses the phrase, motion is lotion. He says you need to get your body moving to get your body to heal. If you're just laying around waiting for things to feel better, it's going to take a really long time for that to happen. He says the more that you can move your body, increase blood flow to the injured areas, the more likely you are to heal quickly. And so we really explain to them, and some people are limited. Like if you have a serious back injury, you may not be going out for a walk on the street. But if we can get them into a pool to walk up and down the pool or something like that, things they can do, and we encourage them to work with their doctor, work with their physical therapist, and find out things that they can do every day at home to help them move their body and get themselves well. I can tell you that people who do that do have a tendency to get better faster. And there's all kinds of study out there that talks about how important it is for your body to move before surgery, after an injury. So that's really important. The other thing that people overlook a lot of times is rest, getting proper rest. And again, we try to discourage people from, napping during the day and just, not and interrupting their traditional sleep patterns. We try to get them back into a normal sleep pattern where they're getting good quality rest. The interesting thing about rest is that when you sleep at night, it actually helps your body. It helps your body heal as well. It helps maintain a healthy immune system. It helps direct energy to that wounded area while you're sleeping to help things recover. And so that's really an important piece as well. And rest is often discounted or overlooked. And what we try to encourage them is don't get opioid-induced rest. Get like real rest. Rest that where that you've had a full day, you've done all the things that you can do to help yourself get well during that day, and then you sleep well at night. The other thing that happens is all of these pieces work together. Because one of the things that I learned in my own experience is that when I was exercising, I felt good about myself. I felt positive. And so that works on the mindset. But also, because I was exercising and using my body, when it came time to rest, I was able to get better rest. Rest also helps your mental attitude. If you get a good night's sleep, we've all raised kids. And, when your kids don't get enough sleep, they wake up cranky. Well, we do as adults, too. We're not happy. We're cranky if we're tired. And so, we want people to get good rest. They wake up with more positive attitude. They're more ready to face the day, and they're more likely to do the things they need to do to help themselves get better. If you wake up not feeling well and feeling kind of grumpy or cranky, it's like, I don't even care about this day. And so you're not going to do the stuff you need to do. So that proper rest is really important to help get you in the right frame of mind the next morning to get up and face that day and help with your recovery. And so that's really kind of how it works. And what our program does is that we have several tiers that you can use. We have education only, which delivers the educational content. It's video and audio content. So we deliver the videos from our coaches, and we have several really great coaches. We have Noah Galloway, former Army vet who was lost an arm and leg in Iraq. So he talks a lot about his recovery and what he went through and how he overcame that and became a superstar in the fitness world. And then we have Shannon Barkey Happy, who's a former Olympic skier, won some medals. She got seriously injured, then went back to skiing competitively. A guy named Nathan Quarry, who's a former MMA fighter who actually broke his back and rehabbed, and then went back into the ring and fought, if you can imagine that. So that's an interesting return to work story right there. And then and then we have a guy named Blair Singer, who we talked about, who wrote the book Little Voice Mastery. It's very, very inspiring. And then a gentleman named Joseph McClendon, who Joseph is a behavioral psychologist by training, but he's also an opener for Tony Robbins. So he's very energetic, and he's very interesting to listen to. And he talks a lot about getting your head in the right place and how you have maintain that positive focus. And we think that's really critical. And then the three of us, Harvey, Doug's the other founder, and myself, also offer our own stories. Doug fell off a mountain. He fell 300 feet off a glacier and broke his back. And when Doug fell, he was in an area because of a storm they could not get help to. And so he called. He actually had cell phone service, strangely enough, which was a fluke. He called 911, and they said, "Well, where are you at?" And they said, "Well, we can't get to you right now." She said, "Can you walk?" And he goes, "Well, I mean, maybe, but it's super, super painful." And she goes, "Well, do you have any, first aid or anything?" He said, "Well, I got some ibuprofen." She said, "Well, take that and then try to get to this place." It took him 8 hours to walk about 5 miles to where they could pick him up on a broken back. And Doug tells a story about how in his recovery he got very, very depressed. I mean, he liked to play beer league hockey. He had grandkids that he liked to wrestle with and toss around. And he really got discouraged, thinking that he was not going to be able to get himself well. And so Nathan Quarry actually called him up and talked to him. And so one of the other things in our program, one of the tiers of our program, is we have coaching, and it's optional. You can opt in this, so in the second tier you can choose like how many coaching calls you want. In the full recovery program, we have coaching. They give you a call every week, and that goes typically, up to 16 weeks. And what we have found is that coaching can be really critical as well. So people like Doug who get stuck in a rut, when the coach calls them, they can talk them through, where you're at. How do we help you get better? Have you watched this content? Do you remember what Blair Singer said? Do you remember what Joseph McClendon said? And so we help them through that. And one of the things that, so Nathan Quarry ended up calling Doug and coaching him through his injury. And Harvey, the guy who wrote the book, The Optimized Patient, his coach was Bill Walton, who also happens to be one of our guests, the late Bill Walton now. But before Bill died, he recorded a lot of video for us that we use, and he's a very upbeat guy. He's super gentleman. I mean, he's just a really neat person, and he talks he really talks a lot about having a good team around you, having good coaches, having people that you can rely on to help keep you focused, and we think that's really critical as well. So we work through that with him, and so what Harvey found out was walking in a pool is beneficial to recovery after a back injury. And no one ever knew that. I mean, he didn't know that. No one ever talked to him about that. And so a lot of times, that coaching can give you. So we always tell people, here's an idea. Talk to your physical therapist, talk to your doctor, make sure it's right for you, and then try it out and see if it works. And so we've had a lot of good success with that. We don't give medical advice. We just always tell them, go through your doctor, go through your physical therapist, because that's really, really critical. The other thing that we do that we think is really helpful, and now there's emerging data on this element too. There wasn't at the time we decided to use it, but there is now, and that we use a self-assessment tool, so that every 2 weeks the injured person is filling out a self-assessment and measuring where they are in their progress. And the reason we did that is because we found that people who are hurt, they, initially they'll start, they know, okay, I was hurt really bad on this day and I'm making a little progress. But the longer you're into the injury, the more you start thinking back to, here's what I was like the day before my injury, and here's what I'm like now. And they feel like they're not getting better because they're so much worse than they were the day before their injury. And it is, so it's a faulty comparison. So what we try to do is give them a baseline of where they are when they enroll in the program, and then they can measure their progress. And that's really helpful because it gives them a visual picture of where what's happening with them. And it also, when you're measuring things, you tend to do better at it. I mean, I know when I was in sales years ago, one of the first things they teach you is that winners keep score. And so we use that mantra a lot, and that is, if you're keeping score, you're winning. If you're not keeping score, you're probably not winning. And so we want people keeping score, making sure they're tracking their progress and getting themselves well. And the really interesting thing is that when the coaches get on the call with the injured person, and they start talking about, well, I just don't feel like I'm getting any better, we can pull up their chart and say, well, look, here's where you were on, August 1st. Here's where you are on October 15th. You've done like remarkable progress. Oh yeah, wow, I didn't realize I'd done that well. And they forget that they actually are making progress, because you get so caught up in the fear and the uncertainty of the injury that you start, you really wonder what your future is going to be like. And so we try to help them understand that they can get well. And so that's been, I think, a really positive thing. And we've had very positive feedback from the people that have been in the program, that's really been a plus for them. And we also use that report to provide to case managers and others who are working with the injured worker, so that they know where their progress is as well, and they can see. And one of the other things that assessment tool is helpful on is it can be like a canary in the coal mine, so to speak. So we'll see people who are going along and their trajectory is really good, and then all of a sudden there's a drop off. Now, a lot of times that happens right after surgery, because they felt pretty good before surgery, then they have the surgery, and then they're kind of takes them down a little bit. Now they got to climb back up. That's not unusual. But if they've already had their surgery and they were already coming back, and then all of a sudden you see a dip, that usually indicates there might be some problem. And I remember one particular individual, she had a pretty significant hip repair, and she fell off a loading dock. And she was tricking along pretty good, and then all of a sudden we see this huge dip, and it's like, what in the world happened? So called her up and talked to her, and she said, well, I don't want to tell you because I'm afraid it'll mess up my claim. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, well, I mean, and I said, look, just tell me what's going on. I won't say anything unless you give me permission to say something to somebody. So what had happened is she'd actually tripped on a rug and fallen in her kitchen and re-injured her hip. And she didn't realize that, her fear was that if I make this report, they're going to cancel my work comp benefits because I re-injured it on my own in my house. And I tried to explain to her, I said, look, it's not going to happen. They're not going to, even if it does happen, you still need to get yourself fixed. So whatever it is, don't sacrifice your body because you're worried about that. So I said, do I have your permission to contact your case manager? She said, yes, I'm okay with that. So we contacted the case manager. And it turns out they were able to get her into her doctor like the next day. And the doctor said, geez, if this had gone on another week or so, he says it would have been probably a redo surgery. He says, we caught it just in time. So had we not been tracking her, no one would ever have known, because she was afraid to tell her case manager about it, because she was afraid she'd lose her benefits. Now, she didn't lose her benefits, of course. But that was her fear, because people don't always understand how the system works, right? And it's a complex system. I think anybody who, has been through the process, those of us who work in workers' comp are so used to how it works that for us, it's like second nature. But for an injured person facing a workers' comp injury for the first time in their life, it's a jumbled up system. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of approvals. And it's a lot different than any experience you'd have in your traditional healthcare model. And so it is confusing. And so what we try to do is we try to help them, navigate the psychology of all of that, making sure they keep their head positive. And despite some of the disappointments or setbacks or whatever that they might face, try to keep positive about getting well and getting your life back. And so that's been very, very successful. One of the other things that we've found is we've had a little over 200 now patients that have gone through our full coaching model. And so far, I don't know how long this will hold, but so far none of them have litigated their claim. They haven't retained an attorney. And I think partly because they feel like somebody's listening to them, they're talking to somebody every week. And I think they're getting some support and education on how to get themselves better, so they feel positive about the experience. And I think that's really, really important, because once you start getting negative stuff in there, it's just really easy for that to turn south and for the whole claim to go south.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know that I read your article in Workplace Health in August, and I had no idea when we scheduled this podcast that my son would be involved in a bad burn injury. And I remembered in the article, you mentioned the nutrients and, making sure that they get the proper food, for recovery. So I went into mother mode, adjuster mode, and I started researching what foods, would best help him in the recovery from the burn. So I just wanted you to know that your article, I remembered every word, and it helped me get through this past 2 weeks with my son. And also wanted to thank you for your support, Brendan is doing great. My work comp family was very supportive during this time, and I will never forget their support. The church community reached out, but my work comp community actually showed up. So just wanted to say thank you.
And again, I think that speaks to the importance of having a good team around you and having a support around you. And one of the other things that we do deal with in our program is we actually work with a caregiver. So the caregiver understands how they can best help the person that they're helping, right? Because, if you've never faced somebody with a serious injury, it's challenging. They get moments, like sometimes you get cranky. I remember, I had both knees replaced. So I used to do a lot of running in my young days, and I guess I ground my knees down to nothing. And so I had them both replaced. And I remember my first one. I'm not a person who likes to sit around and do nothing. Right? It really drives me crazy to just not do anything. I like to be in motion all the time. So I had my knee replaced, and I did super well. But I remember a moment where, so I lived next door to my daughter, and I have 4 grandkids next door. And I remember a moment where one of the granddaughters was missing, like we didn't know where she was. And I suddenly became so frustrated because I couldn't get out and walk around and try to find her because of this knee thing. I was laid up. I couldn't, I could move, but not fast enough to really be of much help. And it was very, very frustrating. And very, very created a lot of anxiety and anxiousness within me. And it really I did super well in my recovery. In 6 weeks, I was approved to go skiing and do whatever I wanted to do. But the reality of it is, in that 6 weeks, that initial part of that, the second or third day when I was still kind of laid up and I couldn't do anything, it was very frustrating for me because I wanted to help. Now, fortunately, she was just at a neighbor's, so it wasn't a big deal. It's just that everybody lost track of her. And she was only like 3, so it was a little nerve-wracking, but the neighbors were great. But we live in kind of a rural residential area, and it's so the lots are big. There's lots of trees, there's woods, there's, wild animals. So you get a little nervous when little kids are missing. Did the fox get away or whatever? That's kind of frustrating. But the reality of it is that, but you'll learn what you can do and what you can't do. And it's amazing what you can do if you put your mind to it. I remember on the second knee, I had it done in March, the middle part of March. And 3 weeks after my surgery, we had a record snowstorm in Salt Lake. It was like 18 inches of snow on the first part of April. And all I could think of was my son-in-law, who usually cleared my driveway, and I have a huge driveway, was gone. He was out of town. And my wife's like, well, I got to go out and do this. And I'm like, there's no way I can let you. I couldn't do it. So I literally hobbled out to my shed, got my snowblower out and used it like a walker and then cleared that driveway after 3 weeks after my knee surgery, which probably my doctor would have shot me. But you know what? You do it because if you get your head there, you can do it. And it's amazing what your body can do. And I think in your case, I look at Brendan. Brendan's a miracle. I saw the before and after pictures, and I was literally astounded. I could not believe what I saw. Now, I think there's 2 things that go into that. One is he had a lot of good, positive support, and I'm sure maintained a very positive attitude because of that. Obviously, I think there's a spiritual component to that where there's some miraculous intervention. I believe in that. I think that was part of his recovery as well. But he's a textbook example of what you can do if you put your mind to it, and how quickly you can get your body back to where it needs to be. And so, people, it's kind of funny because we literally do not charge a lot for this program. The education only piece is $99. It's for 8 weeks of about almost 7 hours of content. It's very, very affordable. The coaching is a little bit more because it's more intense with weekly calls and all of that. And it's like $249 a month. But the reality of it is that it's a small expense compared to what the outcomes are. So we worked with a group in Texas when we've been piloting this and really kind of refining it and learning as we go, because no one had ever done what we're doing. It's never been done. So we've had to learn a little bit as we go. And so we've refined this over time. And the group that we're working with in Texas were giving us difficult cases, lots of comorbidity issues, and they measured our success. They were very serious about helping us understand what was working, what wasn't. And what they found is that similarly situated patients using the program versus not using the program, the people on the program had 10 to 30% better outcomes. That's a significant number, and more than pays for the program. I mean, you get one person, you don't have a redo of a surgery, and you know exactly what that means. That pays for a lot of people in the program. Now the difficult thing is, it's hard to measure. One of the things I always talk about this, in the insurance world, and I've been in the insurance business for 40 years. We're really, really good at measuring inputs. We're not as good as measuring outcomes, and they're harder to quantify, because it's always hard to quantify something that didn't happen, and that could have happened, and so it's hard to know. But what you can do is you can do what this group in Texas did, and that is look at similarly situated patients, same kind of injury, and look at their trajectory and see, okay, did it make a difference? And so you can do that, but it's very difficult to do, and it takes time and it takes energy. But we've and for us, I mean, we've priced it at a point where we want, and the reality of it is, for just the education piece, somebody having surgery on their own that is not work comp and nobody else is going to pay for it, they can pay $99 to get the education. It's very affordable. And so we've tried to make it available to the masses. We really want people to benefit from this, because, I mean, healthcare in this country is over the last several decades has really evolved. And I'm not sure it's evolved in a positive way all the time. I mean, we definitely have better technology, better tools, better procedures. I mean, there's amazing things that have happened. But the thing that I think is really kind of sad is that the way we've marketed healthcare in this country is we tell people, well, if you take this pill, you have this procedure, all your problems are solved. We've disengaged people from their own health and their own recovery. We're trying to re-engage people. We're trying to get people back involved in helping themselves get well. And, we always kind of chuckle that, there's required OSHA safety training that you're forced to do as an employer. And, we think it reduces injuries. There's some data that indicates it it does. That's why they do it, right? Because we're trying to reduce injuries. But there's nothing that forces anybody to teach an injured worker how to get well once they get hurt. And I'm not saying that it should be regulated, but what I am saying is that people ought to just embrace the idea of it and do it, because it's the right thing to do. And it will yield positive results. I mean, the reality of it is that if you can get if you're an employer and you have an injured employee and you're providing them this extra support, they're going to feel really good about that. There's a halo effect with that. And when they come back to work, they're going to be happier. They're going to be less, upset about, and I will tell you that, and when people get hurt, I'll tell you the dynamic of what happens. So we just finished working with a guy who was pretty seriously hurt, and he wanted to get better. He kept telling us, I want to get well, but I just need to know what to do. So we're trying to help him, with that. And he did super, super well. But in the conversations he had with his coach, every week he's saying, my coworkers say I should sue the employer, and that that this isn't right, and I should have been hurt. And he said, but I don't want to do that. I just want to focus on getting well. But so there's voices in these people's heads when they're hurt. One is that they're mad about getting hurt in the first place, and they're worried, right? I don't know, am I going to get my job? Am I going to lose my job? Will I be able to make as much money as I was making? How am I going to provide for myself and for my family? Will I be able to get back to the things I used to enjoy doing as my hobbies? And, I love golfing. I'm horrible at it, but I love it. I would be sad and devastated probably if I had an injury that prevented me from golfing. Although the way I golf, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference. But the reality of it is like, if you worry about all the things that you enjoy doing, and then you have these voices in your head saying, well, sue your employer, do this, do that. And there's no positive outcome in any of that. But by providing him some support and education and really keeping him focused on getting well, his employer avoided all that. So they made a small investment, in his well-being. And the other thing is that this has lasting impacts on people's lives. I can tell you a great story. We get a lot of feedback on the videos because people like, Shannon is amazing. She's like this, super bubble of energy. She's got pink hair and she's awesome. She's just she's like a cheerleader for wellness. So we get a lot of comments on that. We don't hear a lot about the meal plan other than people like the meals. But we got a report from one of the case managers that was working with one of our participants, and she said, she said, this is a great story. I was talking to this injured person's wife, and well, they were at an appointment somewhere, and she says, oh, I really love this program because she says, we like the meals. We really like the meals. And she says, well, what do you like about it? She says, well, I'll tell you this much. She said, I think it's really cool because I've been married to my husband for 20 years. He's never once helped me in the kitchen until this happened and he got these meal plans and he wanted to help make his own food. She said, it's been absolutely fun and remarkable. She says that it made me feel so good that he cared enough, about getting better, but also cared enough about me that he was willing to stand by me in the kitchen and help make these meals for him. And I think, that it seems trivial, but to that particular person, that woman whose husband had never helped her in the kitchen, that was a big deal. And so if you can create an environment where, and our goal is, we want to help them recover for sure, but we also want to give them skills and tools that will help them for the rest of their life. I mean, can you imagine if you have an employee come in who's got who's takes the mindset stuff seriously and comes in every day with a positive attitude, ready to work, ready to do things they need to do, their productivity is going to go up, and they're going to be a happier employee. And even though they got hurt and they have every reason to be unhappy about that, if you can keep them happy and keep them productive, that can have lasting implications for them in the workplace for years to come. And that's what we really try to hope for. I mean, we don't know all the time what happens after we're done working with them, but what we do know is we know where they were the day they came in. We know where they are the day they leave, and they're better for having been in the program for sure. But the other thing is we hope that they take some of those skills and they translate them into their daily life going forward, like eating better food. Because the fact of the matter is, if you can keep them nutritionally well, keep them physically active, the next time they have an injury, if there is a next time, they're going to be better prepared to deal with it because their body's already in the place it needs to be.
And I feel like, for employers to offer this optimized outcome solutions, it sends a positive message that you really care for your employee well-being. And so at the end of the day, I feel like employers should offer this because it's going to give that injured worker the support, and it's going to give them the message that, hey, we care about you. We want you to get well. We want to give you the tools to help you get well. So I'm excited about this program, and I think it's been needed for a very long time.
Yeah, and I will tell you that, we think, and I love what you say because I think that's really true. I think that if there's a sense of empathy, it really goes a long way towards helping that injured worker want to try to do better to get well because they feel like, hey, if my employer cares, then I should care. And I mean, the reality of it is if you can shave, if you shave one day of disability off, if you shave one doctor's visit off, I mean, you've more than paid for the program just in that. If you keep attorneys out of it, you probably paid for the program 20 times, So there's all these, and I'm not dissing on attorneys because they are necessary and they're a part of that process, and I don't have any angst against them. But I will tell you, all the attorneys I talk to, and these are applicant attorneys, they're like, look, we'd be happy if we didn't have work to do, that people were getting taken care of, and we'd be totally fine with that. I mean, our job is to help make sure the system works, and as long as the system's working and we're not needed, we're fine with that. So it's not a diss on them. It's like, how do we make our system work better? How do we make injured employees feel more valued, and how do we make sure that they feel confident in their trajectory of recovery and getting back to work?
Before we end the podcast today, I do have one question. We had talked about the spiritual component. Do you have a spiritual component if the injured worker may request that? Are you looking to add that spiritual component to this program?
Yeah, so we are in the process of recording some spiritual aspects, and really inspired a little bit by your son, and really motivated by that because I know how much that helped him, and I will say that it helped me as well in my recovery. But yes, so I have a friend who's a chaplain. He's also a licensed therapist. He's also a recovering addict, so he's had a lot of struggles and challenges himself, and he understands the value of that spiritual component. He's a very, very nice and gracious person. He's more than happy to help. We're just in the process now of scheduling him to get those videos recorded so that we can add those in to our program. And so we should have those done, in the next month. And and he's actually just was commissioned by the Army to come in as a chaplain. So he'll be working with our service members. Early next year he goes in, so I'm trying to get him recorded before he gets shipped off someplace. So super nice guy. I've known him, for a while, and I knew he'd gone through these struggles, and I'd seen his growth personally, and it's like his story's incredible as well. It's amazing what you can overcome if you put your mind to it, if you have good support around you. If, in his case, he put his faith in God, and it really made a difference for him. And I think that will make a difference for some. And there are some injured workers who really will benefit from that spiritual component. And it will be non-denominational. It's not going to follow any particular tenet, but it'll be just very, general concepts of spirituality that can help your body and help your mind get where it needs to get to.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we truly appreciate the information that you've delivered today for our guest, and can't thank you enough for your support. And the article really has helped our family a lot, and I just want to say thank you.
I'm so happy about that, and that's what we hope to do. I mean, for us, I will tell you that this is kind of like mission work for us. I mean, we're all of us that are founders are kind of at the ends of our careers, and so it's not like we're not trying to build, we're not trying to build anything other than a legacy of goodness and help. And so that's what we're really trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today with our podcast. If you want to learn more about workplace health, go to wphmag.com. Thank you.